Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Anniken and I design knitting patterns and teach knitting workshops, and I live in the southwest of England. Welcome to today's video. I hope you enjoy it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. I release videos every Friday on different topics to do with knitting, tutorials, yarn reviews, knitting product reviews, and of course my fortnightly episode of the Confessions of a Yarn Addict podcast. So I hope you like what you see and you decide to stick around if you are new here. So please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and please give the video a thumbs up and please leave a comment. So in today's video I'm going to show you how I block the Lavinia poncho and how I sew together the points to create sleeves. So the Lavinia poncho was originally designed for the Lacewear Volume 1 collection in, I think it was 2016, and it came in one size, using 100 grams, 800 meters of lace weight yarn. The yarn is no longer available, so I decided to re-knit it in a Shopple Lace Ball 100. You can also use the regular lace ball, and I decided to add a larger size. The pattern also includes notes on how you can customize your size. So this video is showing the largest size of Lavinia. Lavinia is available on Ravelry and also on Payhip. If you purchased the pattern on Ravelry in the past, you will have been sent a new version automatically. So when I updated the pattern, that pattern will automatically go out to everyone who's purchased the pattern of 4 if you purchase it on Ravelry. The pattern was not available on Payhip before, so this is the first time I've been able to offer it on Payhip. So I'll put all the links to where you can find the pattern below. And now let's get into the blocking tutorial. Then after the blocking tutorial, I show you how I sewed it together. And then at the end, I show you a little bit of a twirl around my garden wearing it, so you can see what it looks like on me when I'm moving and not sort of just standing still for the photos. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. So I have soaked the poncho in lukewarm water with a bit of wool wash. I use a non-rinse type. I normally recommend soak or Eucalan. I'm using soak at the moment, but in the past I've used Eucalan as well. And then I roll the poncho up into a thick towel, and I'm just squeezing out as much water as I can so it's not soaking wet. I soak it for about 10 minutes, I would say 10 to 20 minutes max. There's no need to soak it any more than 20 minutes. I'm using my Knit Pro blocking mats, which are these foam mats, and I'll probably need more than what I've got on my table. And I'm using blocking wires. These are Knit Pro, and some of them are quite bent, but that's fine. And I'm probably also going to be using my Knit Pro knit blockers, which are these kind of comb things, metal comb things. And then I've also got my blocking pins. So let's have a look at what I'm going to do. Okay, so I just squeeze out as much water as I can. I don't want it soaking wet, but I don't want it completely dry either. And then, let me just move some of this out of the way a bit. This poncho is knitted from the top down into a hexagon shape. And I'm going to, you can block it completely flat. I'm not going to do that because I haven't got a space big enough. And if you block it completely flat, stretched out, you have to make sure that you measure all the sides quite thoroughly to make sure that it all matches. Blocking it like this is easier. So let me just move these a little bit. What I have to be careful of is to make sure that I match these spine rows. I don't know how easy this is to see it from here, but this is knitted in, it's knitted in the round from the top down, but it's kind of 6 sections separated by a spine column. Can you see that? With yarn overs either side. So I want to try and match up those columns. So that one and that one. And then on this side here. I want to just try and match it up sort of roughly at the moment. And then I'll have to do the same thing over there, but I'm going to start on this side. And then there isn't any kind of shaping around the neck. I just cast on enough stitches so it fits nicely around the neck. It's the same number of rows on the front as there is on the back, so there isn't any like short row shaping or things like that. It's not dipped more at the front and the back or anything like that. They're the same. So it doesn't really matter what's the front and back. And what I want to do is find the middle of this wedge to put my blocking wire through. So I'm going to do that first. So I'm just going to put that blocking wire through here. I'm not putting it in and out of the fabric. I'm just putting it inside the fabric because I think that's easier and looks better. So this is a hexagon shape. So I got 6 long sides, I guess, between the spines. And on each of those I've got these picots. Well, they're not actually picots. What do you want to call them? Scalloped edges. And there is a bead in the bit where I want to pull it out to make it kind of like pointy like that. And there are 16 of these along one edge. So here, because I want to put this wire in between halfway through this wedge, what I've done is I've counted 8 on the bottom layer and the top layer of fabric, and then I matched the 2 points up here. So that's kind of my starting point. Pull these right out to the edge here, and then I'm going to line this up with my, hang on. I'm going to line this up with the top edge of my blocking mat, because then it's easier to make sure it's straight. And then I'm going to use my knit blockers to make sure that this edge is, to pin this edge down. Because I've got blocking wire in here, I don't have to have my knit blockers right next to each other without any gaps. If I didn't have the blocking wire, I would need to put the knit blockers right next to each other to ensure there aren't any gaps. Otherwise, when I pull it, it will give me kind of like scallops along the top edge, which I don't want. Okay, then I'm going to match up the spine here, and hang on, and there. And I'm going to take a pin and just pull that out a bit. I will need to adjust this later, but just give me a rough idea. I'm also going to do the same thing down here. What can happen is when you, if you start pulling on one side of the shawl or poncho, whatever it is, it then allows you to pull less on the other side. So if you stretch it a lot on this side, I may not be able to stretch it as much on the other side. On this particular poncho, where I'm going to pull these points out, I happen to have beads. It makes it a little bit easier to match them. And normally I will use blocking wires because it's easier. It can be a little bit difficult when you've got to go through 2 layers of fabric, but I'm still going to try and do it. I can just pull them out and put a pin in them, but I find this is usually gives a better result. But if you don't have blocking wires, you can certainly just pull each one of these points out and put a pin in it. When you use a blocking wire, it's easier to make sure all those points are pulled out of the same point. If you don't use a blocking wire, it can be a bit more difficult to make sure they're pulled out of the same point. So there's a yarn over either side of this bead that's on the center stitch of each of these points. So I'm going through the yarn over on the top, through the 2 yarn overs on the bottom, and then back out through the second yarn over on the top. Nearly went through the wrong yarn over there. There we go. So now I can use my pins. I find it easier with these pins to take some out and put in the lid, and then I can put that one box away because I do quite often knock it off my table. which is a bit of a nuisance. Right, I'm also going to find a tape measure and measure how long this edge is, because I want to make sure this edge isn't too long. So this is the edge that will come down my sleeve from my shoulder, and I'm a little bit worried that if that's too long, it will come down onto my hands. Rather, I wanted to finish there really. So I'm just going to really do with somebody helping me to do this, but I'm the only one here right now. You may hear a bit of gardening noise. My husband is gardening today, so you may hear a bit of gardening noise. He's using electrical equipment and stuff, but I thought it was a good chance because there's nobody else in the house. So what I've decided is that I've stretched this edge too long. I don't think I want it to be much more than 65 centimeters, and I've stretched it out to 70 centimeters, so I don't want it to be quite that long. Now, one thing you have to bear in mind is that, especially if you're knitting with wool, it can shrink back a bit after you've pinned it out. After it's dry and you unpin it, it can shrink back a bit. So that's just one thing you need to bear in mind. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one like that for now. Just going to put one more pin in here. I'm not going to pin this edge here out properly yet because I want to make sure that I can pin it or stretch it evenly all the way around. So I'm just going to pin it like that and leave it like that for now, and then we will do this edge. So again, I'm going to match up the beaded points on the top and bottom. So I need to go down through the top layer, bottom layer, back up through the top layer. Like I said, you can just pull them out like that and then pin it, but I think this is probably quicker, even with having to match the top and bottom layer of fabric. I think this is probably still quicker if you have blocking wires, but if you don't, all this blocking equipment can cost a bit of money when you're first investing in it, but obviously it does last a long time. Okay, nearly there now. So we got one more here, and there, and then we got one more picot, not picot, they're not picot, point. They're not quite picots. Right, there we go. So let's pull this out. I'm trying not to stretch it too much. Actually, looking at the shape of this, I think actually what I need to do is actually pull this up a bit. This shape is not quite right, but I'm going to leave it like that for now and then do the other side, just so I can stretch it all out roughly and then I can fine tune it. This can be sometimes a bit difficult because it depends on how much space you've got and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to match up. Right, so I know I've got to match up. I got 16 points. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm just looking for where the beads are, which makes it a lot easier. So this poncho, I keep calling it a shawl, but it's a poncho, only has beads on the edging. I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to just use a pin to pin it there quickly, and then I'm also going to just stretch this out and pin it just so I got the rough shape. Okay, so what I need to do now is to try and make sure that this neckline is okay. I don't need those, I need the knit blockers. So it looks a bit funny here, but I think I need to adjust this later anyway, so I'm going to leave it for now. But I know the other side measured about 65 centimeters, so I'm going to work out roughly how. I need to kind of fine tune the measurements a bit later on, so I'm not going to worry too much about this for now. I just want to roughly pin it out. Okay. I'll leave it like that for now. It doesn't look, this bit looks like it's pulled up more than that bit, things like that, but I'm going to adjust that a bit later on. So now I'm going to do the wire on this side. So again, matching the top layer and the bottom layer. So where you want to, where the points are, so not talking, well, talking specifically about this poncho, but also talking in general about shawls that have scalloped edges, is that where the point is, where you want to pull it and stretch it, is usually fairly obvious, because even when the fabric is relaxed, you can see there's some bits kind of naturally want to form like little triangle bits. So it should be fairly obvious where you want to pull the points out. And if you're not sure, just kind of pull a bit on the edge and you'll hopefully soon see where the points want to be. Can be difficult when you've got to match the top and bottom layer of a fabric. That can sometimes be a bit tricky. It can be easy to get that slightly wrong. So I'm just going to put a couple of pins in on this side. Sorry, that's off camera, but I'm going to move on to this bit in a minute, so I'm not going to move the camera again. Okay, and then I need another blocking wire. And I'm going to go through here. So I try and do as much of this sitting down as I can, because I'm quite tall, so bending over the dining room table is not good for my back, and I have back problems. So I try and do most of the sitting down, especially kind of, I've got problems with my neck, and especially kind of bending my neck and looking down a lot really hurts my neck, so I do have to be a bit careful with this. Which is why I try and sit down as much as possible. You've got to work with your abilities and any disabilities you have. You've got to make sure that you adjust how you work so that you can do it without ending up in too much pain or harming yourself too much. Okay, nearly there now. Okay, so that's the wire through all of these. Now I'm lucky that I've managed to, my wires are just long enough to go through one of these edges. So I'm quite lucky that the wire is long enough. If it's not long enough, then you may have to use 2 wires on each one of these long edges. So I'm just going to pull this out a bit. Now, move that pin a bit. Now I need to measure this central bit here. Hang on, let me just... I tend to stretch my lace, especially fine lace like this, quite a lot, and sometimes they kind of pop back again. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is move that, because I don't need that for a bit. Move this back more into the center. Now what I want to do is try and make sure this center line is straight, which it's not. So I'm going to just move that to there. So I'm going to measure this length here. That's 67, because I need to make sure that the other spines are the same. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start pinning it from the center at the bottom here, and work my way outwards, because I've got on the sides here, at the sort of side spines, if you like, there is a little bit of excess of fabric, so I may have to bring the top edge around a bit more. I'll explain that as I go. So I'll just get some more pins. If I wasn't filming, I would actually go and sit on the other end of the table, but and I can't see when I'm filming. So I'm going to be a bit careful with the blocking wires. I've never actually broken the yarn with the blocking wire, but you have to be a little bit careful just to make sure that you don't break the yarn. I've never actually had the yarn break when I'm blocking something that's brand new. It has sometimes happened when I'm blocking something that's a few years old, so where the yarn's weakened a bit. Now I don't put a pin in every single of these points. I do every other one usually. Because this yarn is quite bright, it's kind of doing funny things to the light on my camera. Okay, so I'm basically working from the center. I've put a pin in the center. I keep adjusting this pin because it keeps changing a bit. Then I'm putting it in every other point. And I'm working, so I did a few that way, then did a few that way, and I'm basically working my way from the center. Into a point now where it's difficult to show you both sides of the shawl. Here, I've got like an excess of fabric that I need to, which means that I think the top edge, instead of being straight here, I think they have to bring it around a bit. So instead of having this straight along the top edge, I'm actually going to have to bring it out a bit. We'll need to measure this in a minute, but at the moment I'm just going to roughly stretch it out, and then I'm going to finish pinning it on this side. Okay. Okay, so there's a bit here that's come off the edge of the blocking wires. I'm just doing that with a pin. The blocking wire kind of ends here. So I'll just pull that point there out with a pin. I think that'll be fine. Okay, let's measure this spine here. Make sure that's the same. Another thing you've got to be careful with these blocking pins is that they have a little, the T-pin bit at the top is kind of wound around, and there's a tiny gap there, and that can very easily get caught in your yarn if you're using thin yarn like this. So you've got to be a little bit careful just to make sure that you don't catch that in the yarn, because it can be difficult to get out. So I'm also going to measure this edge roughly. Get a rough idea, so that's about 90 centimeters. And this should be about 45. Okay, so I need to bring this top edge here up a little bit. Thought I might have to put some more blocking wires at the edge here, which I don't really want to, because it's difficult to fit it all on my table. Okay, there's one here which I think I forgot to actually put on the wire. So I'm going to, that's the bottom bit, that's the top bit. It's the one that's right by the wire at the top here. I think I forgot to actually put that on this blocking wire. And I can't fit on the blocking wire, but I'm not going to bother. I've just pulled that out with a pin. Okay, so I think this bit side is fine now. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to slide this over a bit just so I can work on the other side, and I'm also going to move my camera around. Okay, so I'm going to take these knit blockers out here and then put these blocking mats in here. My blocking mats are falling apart as well. When it comes to blocking mats, Knit Pro sell them. I believe Knit Pro is called Knitter's Pride in the US. I would say you don't really need to get the Knit Pro ones. I'm not sure if I should say that or not, but you can buy similar type of mats on eBay. A lot of hardware shops, different shops sell them. I've seen them in the UK in Aldi, for example, once or twice a year. So there are loads of places where you can get these now. They're a lot easier to get hold of. A lot of people use them for all kinds of different purposes. My dog trainer, for example, used it for her puppies. She's got a she's a dog trainer and dog breeder, and she has like a shed area where she keeps where the puppies spend a lot of time when they're tiny. And I know she's got some of these similar type in there, because I asked her where she bought them from, because she covered quite a big area, so I assume she got them fairly cheap somewhere, and she got them on eBay, so I know that they're available from different places. Okay, so I'm going to just check that this edge is the same as the same edge on the other side. The first knit blocking set I bought came with this measuring stick, which is wooden. It's only got inches on it, but it's very, I don't use it to like get the final measurements, but it is quite useful to just do like rough measurements. But I use a tape measure to get the final measurements. Okay, 25, 25. Stretch this bit way too much. Okay. Let's just pin this bit out. So this just shows how you have to kind of keep altering things as you go, and you have to unpin it, repin it till you get it right, and it can be difficult sometimes to get it right the first time. So that was the full length of that from there to there, so that's roughly right. There we go. With some shawls I just kind of eyeball the lengths and things and to make sure that it's the same, you know, that it's centered either side of the like center line of things. With others I'm a bit more careful and I measure it properly. I always do proper measurements for the final pattern. Okay, so this needs to come up a little bit. So when I finish, when I think I've got this the right size, the right shape, everything, I'm going to then do the detailed measurements and check that everything matches, so that everything either side of the center line is matches and all that kind of stuff. At the moment I'm just making sure it's like roughly right, and then I always go through and like fine tune it, if you like, at the end. Okay. I think that's nearly it. Got one more point here to pin out, and I think that is it. So I'm going to sew up this edge to stop this poncho from like flying out of control when I wear it. It is windy. you don't have to do this, but I quite like it. It kind of creates almost like batwing sleeves. So what I've done is I've matched the spine that goes down here on the front and the back, and I've just put those 2 points together and just put one of these bulb stitch markers just to hold them together. Then I've counted a few. I think I've done 7 up here. You can do as many as you want, just make sure you leave enough room for your arms. So I'm going to, and then I've broken off some yarn in the same colour as I finished with, and then I'm going to stitch these together. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch the points together. I'm not going to sew like a continuous seam, because that will stop these points that are supposed to hang down, that will kind of hide them. So I'm just going to stitch the points together so that you still get this scalloped effect along the border. I'm going to do this without talking because my husband is chipping wood outside where I'm filming, and I think he's taking a break at the moment, but I think he's about to start again. So I'm going to put some music over this just to just so I can film this today without you having that awful noise, because it is pretty loud. So I'm going to put some music over this while I do this, and then I'll show you what it looks like at the end. hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. You'll find all the links to where you can find the pattern below, and also where you can purchase the yarn that I used to knit a new version of Lavinia. You'll find all those links below this video, plus where you can find me on social media. Please look me up on Twitter and Instagram, and I also have a Love of Lace Knitting Facebook group. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And of course, always leave me a comment. I really appreciate reading your comments. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.